ask more questions. Where is the annual kilt question?
No idea. I got plenty of questions, but none developer related.
Well, what's
Oh, I was
what's
just
the
wondering.
what's the status?
Okay. The I didn't know if they were gonna fix the IM zone boxes where you drive into it and it automatically closes. You lose all control of the vehicle.
I believe we're going to be having a beta soon, so I would check out that beta to make sure that it's fixed whatever you want, and then post whatever. Um, it's,
So you're
it's it's either next week or the week after.
so you're thinking it might work like the old ones where you could drive with the boost and fly and all that with the box open and not have problems.
I don't know what's fixed with that, but bring it up in the beta so that way it kind of pushes the issue. A kinky dress for men. Okay, I don't know
I
about
have a
that.
question. Since you were talking about seat nodes on hover boats and being able to like have as a maximum or few as you want, is that correct? Like you can currently have like what, 5? You could limit it to say like 2 if you wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know if we can get that in on the next, batch of specs for like the interactive objects. If
Well,
if it's not a big thing to add it, I can see if we can add it at the same time. We already have settings for setting the exhaust color.
well,
So I'll
my
see
question
what's
was more towards actually, this is probably the wrong forum to even ask this question, but there's always been lots of talk about either re-enabling or making it possible again for hover boats to be raceable, and the answer has always been that they're essentially flying chat groups. So with being able to move them to only like saying having 2 seat nodes, would it be possible to come out with a racing form of hoverboat that could be race enabled?
uh, I've never heard that. Maybe that's way it was described at one point or whatever. The reason why they're not race enabled is never defined as a race vehicle. So there'd be some work to go back into there. So each vehicle, there's some code and some configuration that basically sets it up as a racing vehicle. And the hoverboat, I guess, was thought to be a social vehicle, and it never got set up that way.
Oh,
No,
I was told that that at one time that they were race enabled and that they ended it.
No, what happened was at one point they worked, but there was a desire to, I believe, be able to limit the vehicles that are in your zone, only the ones that were, of a particular type. I think when that happened, they actually no longer worked because they had never been set up to be race enabled. So they kind of worked that as a side effect, but once it was restricted to these have to actually be race enabled, the hoverboat stopped working.
Okay, it's just every time we start talking about their games, eventually somebody brings up hoverboats and wanting them to be raceable. So
Right. Yeah, they were never set up to be racing vehicles. They just kind of worked as a side effect. And I mean, they could be made race enabled. There's just some additional work to configure them that way.
What's the status on the new preview?
Well, the changes that went out for the last one were for the 2009 exporter and for the Collada exporter or Collada converter. And they weren't really ready for prime time, either of them. The 2009, unfortunately, we don't have a copy of 3ds Max 2009, so we can't really test it in-house. So we were kind of hoping that the version we had another company work on converting it, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like it actually works. So until that's resolved, we can't release that.
And that one will have better support for light mapping? I mean, in other words, the current one, a lot of times I have a hard time loading the light map. I mean, you can load the texture, but it won't show in Previewer.
I don't think it would change anything as far as that goes. Either way is going to load the light map in the same way. Are you saying when they're not actually set up in 3ds first?
Well, I mean, everything is set and go to export it, and then whenever I go to load the model and then load the texture and then load the light map texture, a lot of times the light map texture won't show.
Yeah, the 2009 wouldn't address that. This sounds kind of like a different bug. Let's see if we can reproduce that here. And unfortunately, the Collada converter, it worked, but we don't have any templates or anything, and for examples, and I think there were a lot of kind of little things here and there that would make it not really ready for prime time, as far as I could tell. Cool, Matt, you had your hand up? Well, the client right now isn't available for Mac, so that probably will be the first thing that will come out. I don't know where everything else will follow, including what sort of 3D packages.
And now what about reflection, like Real Chrome? With the new DX9 client coming out, will we have that functionality also?
I don't think there's actually that kind of reflection. Eventually we'll build in all the DX9 settings into Previewer. There's an environmental map, but that's kind of static, so that requires you to basically take, for example, you take the image that you have right now, and you'd be able to, or what we're sitting and the things that are surrounding you, and you would be able to map that to your object to kind of get a reflection type effect. As far as it actually, you walk up to something and you see your avatar's image reflecting off that object. That's actually kind of expanded, isn't something part of the DX9. There is the ability to change glossiness and change your ambient light settings basically on a pixel